Ready, Bob? Good afternoon. I'm going to call our work session for the February 26, 2026 meeting to order. If you're looking at the agenda, number one was an interview of architect finalists for the Sheriff's Office Replacement and Jail Modernization Project, including a mental health edition. We had both those interviews earlier today at 2 and 3 o'clock. They are recorded, but to assure that one group couldn't be listening to the other group, they'll be posted tomorrow after 10 o'clock. So we're going to move straight into the actual work session as we always do, and I'm going to call Alicia Searcy, our Finance Director, to go over our recaps for January 2026.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. We have before us today our January 31st, 2026 financials for the General Fund, and we're right on line of where we need to be as far as our revenues concerned. Just kind of drilling down a little bit and looking at that tax line, which is the largest portion of our budget. I kind of wanted to see where we were this year compared to last year. This year we've collected 78.3% of our budgeted taxes, and last year we were at 77%. So we're a little bit ahead. Sales tax and TVAT, insurance premium tax, those are coming in above budget. So that's helped that ratio there. And on our fines, fees, and forfeitures, last year we were at 44.7% of our budget, and this year we're at 46.8% of that line item. If you look on down, there's a couple of line items that we've already met our budget on. One is contributions, and that's reflective of contributions that we've received for the animal shelter. So we've got a not-for-profit out there that's raising money for the animal shelter, and they've made those contributions to help fund some things there. And then the other line is, and we've already met budget there, and that's related to some retirement forfeitures that we brought back in as revenue, and that's due to people leaving the county before they are vested in the retirement funding. So overall, our revenue is at 74.37% of our budget. And then when we look at our expenditures, we've got total expenditures of $53,256,048, and that does include a capital purchase. So if we back that out, our operating expenditures are at $49,567,183, which is 58% of our budget. Our goal would be to be at 58.3, so we're running slightly below budget on our operating expenditures. Then on our 21 spliced expenditures, we have the largest, or one of the largest areas there is our expenses on our administration building. Last month we expended $219,058.82 on the admin building, and then the next largest, actually the largest item is the solid waste transfer station. We expended $956,377.40, and both of those projects are nearing completion. We would hope in the next 2 to 3 months those will be completed. Then on the 2015 spliced, our big expenditure there was on the county admin building. So we made 2 payments to Balfour totaling $2,837,152.
Ms. Searcy, we had a good report from our audit firm from prior fiscal year that we went over at the retreat, and that was good information that we did not have any major findings. And I know we had some pretty in-depth conversations looking at that audit and ways we can all continue to improve how we govern, but everything looked very well. So
it did, and we're still maintaining an adequate fund balance. So we're doing well as far as that's concerned.
Okay. So we'll move into the agenda for the work session on Tuesday night. First, of course, we have zoning. We won't be discussing that today. We'll go over the zoning map, which was all the things we voted on last year that we'll update the map on. Nothing new, but what we've already done. But I do want to take a moment on 8.3. This is a letter to our local delegation, a need for reform of Georgia annexation laws and approval of House Bill 496. And Commissioners, I'm presenting this letter to you today. It does not need to be voted on, but it affects many of the citizens in Carroll County. This letter will be sent to the Honorable Timothy Bearden, the Honorable Matt Brass, the Honorable Tyler Paul Smith, the Honorable Jet Howard, the Honorable David Huddleston, the Honorable Lynn Smith. And this is, again, concerning the reform of Georgia annexation laws and asking for approval of Senate Bill 496, which was presented by our own Senator Matt Brass. It's a little lengthy, but there's a lot of history that goes back on how counties and cities do annexation. And I wasn't here when some of this was going on, and I don't believe some of our legislators have either. So, and I think the citizens will appreciate knowing this history as well. So, dear Senators and Representatives, on behalf of Carroll County, we write to raise urgent concerns regarding the continued misuse of Georgia's municipal annexation laws by private developers and the resulting harm to the agricultural properties, rural communities, county governance, and comprehensive planning. Recent annexation activity in your districts, opposed by many of your constituents, has underscored significant statutory deficiencies that leave counties with no meaningful ability to oppose harmful or illegal annexations. 1. Common tactics and consequences. Of particular concern are the increasing common tactics used by developers to engineer annexations that prioritize their private development interest over sound planning, public accountability, or even the minimal legal constraints imposed by statute. In practice, certain procedural flexibilities and statutory definitions enable contiguity loopholes that developers and municipalities exploit to effect annexations with minimal functional connection to existing city boundaries. These tactics include, but are not limited to, strategic use of hook and catch annexation, where a developer acquires a small parcel or a narrow strip of land to act as a hook in order to include a much larger, nearby, unincorporated target parcel or area, which is the catch, in order to attempt to meet the technical contiguity requirements, but with minimal actual connection to the municipality. Coordinated petitions by related or affiliated property owners to meet statutory thresholds while excluding affected neighboring properties. Timing annexations to precede zoning or development approvals in order to avoid county land use regulations. And annexation of property for intense development while shifting increased service responsibilities to the county, such as the improvement and upkeep of adjacent access roads, and remain in the unimport part of Carroll County. A recent example of such tactics is where a data center developer sought an annexation of 310 acres of rural agricultural land into the city of Temple by way of 2 small tracts that would hypothetically touch at a single point in the middle of an interstate highway. This is despite the general requirements that the abutting area to the city must be at least 1/8 of the aggregate external boundary of the area to be annexed, or 50 feet, whichever is less. And you can see OCGA 36-36-20a1. A circulated map of this recently imposed illegal annexation is attached so you can visually see how the attempted annexation did not even meet the minimal legal requirements by the statute. In addition, the county and the citizens were made of the aware of proposed annexation not from any official communications, but through a news reporter who happened upon the information on the state website. It has been reported, as in many of these cases, that the developer and the city and/or development authorities enter into a non-disclosure agreement claiming they were not allowed to discuss the proposed project with anyone. These types of practices undermine transparency, they frustrate county planning efforts, and they erode the public confidence in the annexation process. Despite these substantial impacts, current laws provide counties with virtually no effective ability to contest the annexations, even when those annexations conflict with state law, adopted comprehensive plans, service delivery strategies, or long-term infrastructure investments. Counties are often regulated to only receiving one required official notice via letter without any meaningful remedies. Counties are then left to manage the consequence of growth decisions over which they had no meaningful voice. 2, statutory limitations on county rights and role. In the 2007 legislative session, the Georgia General Assembly passed House Bill 2, codified at OCGA 36-36-110, placing into law a new arbitration procedure to be conducted by the Georgia Department of Community Affairs, known as DCA, for resolving annexation disputes between cities and counties. This procedure was later amended by 2022 Georgia Laws Act 785, which was House Bill 1461, to require reporting on how the arbitration process was being conducted by DCA, so that we now have statistics from FY year 23 through FY year 25 that show, out of a number of objections filed and arbitrations requested, only 1 or 2 were heard by an arbitration panel, and there were no real meaningful changes to the annexations that were heard, only some conditions that were recommended or previously agreed upon by the parties. In a typical annexation involving one or a few parcels with the consent of all property owners, the county may have an opportunity to lodge an objection for some very limited and specific reasons, which may be heard by an arbitration panel, which might make some recommendations to mitigate the financial burdens on the county by the annexation, but which are ultimately only limited to 2 years anyway. To be a valid objection, the county must document and provide evidence of financial impact of a material increase in burden upon the county directly related to 1, the proposed change in zoning or land use, 2, the proposed increase in density, or 3, the infrastructural demand related to the proposed change in zoning or land use. Delivery of services alone may not form a basis for objection unless tied to these specific criteria. While the statute recognizes the right of a county to object, there is no real relief for valid and proper objections. The arbitration panel cannot 1, deny or turn down the annexation, 2, require the city or applicant to start over and follow the statutory procedures, or 3, consider any impact annexation will have on the local school system's budget in terms of additional students to be served. In short, the arbitration panel does not rule for or against the county or the city. The process is not designed for one side to win and the other side to lose. Instead, if the county has raised a valid objection, as that term is defined by law, and if the arbitration panel determines the county's objection warrants intervention by the panel, the arbitration panel can 1, establish reasonable zoning, land use, or density conditions that will apply to the annex period for a period of only up to 2 years. 2, propose reasonable mitigation measures to address demands on county infrastructure. And 3, if the annexation causes a financial impact upon the county associated with the provision or maintenance of county infrastructure, the panel must quantify such impact in terms of cost. Despite counties providing timely objections under the annexation arbitration statute, counties still have no effective way, let me say that again, no effective way to prevent or stop annexation that significantly increases demands, negatively impacts rural or agricultural areas, or disrupts service planning for citizens. 3, recent annexation examples demonstrating harm. The Georgia Department of Community Affairs has provided the following statistics related to the current statutory arbitration process in its annexation arbitration annual report for the past 3 years. Statistics for FY year 2025. Out of the 25 initial requests for arbitration filed in FY25, no arbitration proceedings were actually held, with many being dismissed for procedural reasons, and the only completed arbitration being the simple adoption of a settlement agreement between the parties, which allowed the annexation to proceed with limited agreed-to conditions that were reported as follows. Chatham County versus the City of Savannah. Annexation arbitration, Little Neck Road. DCA first notified of the objection and request for arbitration was in September of 2024. The final panel was appointed October 2nd of 2024. Decision rendered was December 10th, 2024. This is the date by which the decision must be rendered was December 1st, 2024. However, the chair of the panel extended the date by 10 business days as permitted by statute to December 13th, 2024. Summary. Chatham County objected to the City of Savannah's proposed annexation of 667.9 acres. Chatham County objected to an increase in density. The parties came to an external agreement before the panel convened. The panel then convened to adopt the agreement. Statistics for FY 2024. The DCA again reported only 2 completed arbitrations in FY 2024. One where the panel found that all the objections were valid, yet the annexation was allowed. And the panel recommended a few conditions. The second were where the annexation went forward with a few agreed-upon conditions being adopted by the panel. A summary of the 2 arbitrations was reported as followed. Forsyth County versus the City of Cumming, annexation arbitration, Horizon. DCA first notified of the objection and request for arbitration was February 2nd of 2024. The final panel appointed was February 19th, 2024. The decision rendered was March 25th, 2024. The summary was that Forsyth County objected to the City of Cumming's proposed annexation of 32.9 acres. Forsyth County objected to zoning land use. The panel found that all the objections were valid. The panel recommended a few conditions. Jackson County versus the City of Hodgson. Annexation arbitration, Providence. DCA first notified of the objection and requested for arbitration on May 8th of 2023. The final panel was appointed May 24th, 2023. The decision rendered was on August 8th, 2023. The date by which the decision must be rendered was July 23rd, 2023. The process was postponed in June by the parties in an effort to reach resolution before arbitration. On September 14, 2024, DCA was notified that an external agreement had been reached and adopted by the panel. Summary. Jackson County objected to the City of Hodgson's proposed annexation of 33 acres. Jackson County objected to the zoning land use, infrastructure demands, and the density increase. The panel adopted the final order, including a few conditions as agreed upon by the parties. Statistics for 2023. The DCA reported only 1 completed arbitration in FY24 as follows. Coweta County versus the City of Noonan. Annexation arbitration, Green Top Road. DCA first notified the objection request for arbitration was on October 13th of 2022. The final panel was appointed on Friday, October 28th, 2022. The decision rendered was January 10th, 2023. The original date was supposed to be January the 2nd per section 36-36-115, little a1, large a. The chair of the panel extended the date by which the decision must be rendered by 10 days, meaning the final date by which a decision could be rendered was January 11th of 2023. Summary. Coweta County objected to the City of Noonan's proposed annexation of 163.61 acres. Coweta County objected to the zoning, land use, infrastructure demands, and density increase. The panel found that all the objections were valid. The panel recommended several conditions. What the official annual summaries do not show or provide are information on the harmful annexations that were objected to by counties but dismissed by DCA, such as Bullock County versus the City of Statesboro. In 2025, Bullock County filed objections under OCGA 36-36-13 to multiple proposed annexations by the City of Statesboro involving large residential and mixed-use developments, expressing concerns over infrastructure strain and education system impacts. At least one objection was dismissed because the procedural requirements were not met within strict statutory deadlines, underscoring how counties can lose rights simply through timeline issues. In August of 2024, Bullock County had also objected to another large annexation proposal, a 714-acre planned development. illustrating continued attempts by developers and municipalities to pursue annexations of significant acreage without adequate county input or negotiated service transitions. Coweta County versus the City of Newnan, 2025. Coweta County sought judicial relief to restrain an annexation that the City of Newnan finalized despite county objections and unresolved dispute resolution procedures. The Georgia Court of Appeals held in Coweta County versus City of Newnan, 374 Georgia 702, 2025. This case, an annexation dispute between Coweta County, known as the county, and the City of Newnan, the city, concerns approximately 32 acres of land in unincorporated Coweta County. The county filed an action for declaratory judgment and injunctive relief seeking to enjoin the city from finalizing the annexation without first resolving the county's objection through the dispute resolution process set forth in OCGA 36-36-110. But the city nonetheless passed an ordinance finalizing the annexation. For the reasons set forth below, we conclude that the trial court correctly dismissed the county's claim for injunctive relief as moot and resolved its claim for declaratory judgment in favor of the city. Importantly, however, the Act does not include any provisions stating that failure to comply with the statutory process results in the annexation being invalid. In the absence of such a provision, we reject the county's contention that the annexation at issue in this case is void on the ground that the city failed to comply with the dispute resolution procedures set forth in OCGA 36-36-110. We therefore affirm the trial court's judgment in favor of the city on this claim. These cases illustrate how counties can expend time, resources, and political capital only to see annexations, often of large tracts of land slated for development, move forward with minimal county influence. The focus of the statute on procedural grounds and narrow objections criteria significantly limits counties' ability to protect broader interests and plan consistent regional growth. Residents in the unincorporated areas of Carroll County living near but not in the area to be annexed understandably feel disenfranchised by annexation. They have no representation on the city council and therefore their county commissioners to be their voice in opposition to change. It can be difficult to explain to these citizens the limitations that counties face in trying to prevent or stop harmful and illegal annexations. 4. Requested statutory reforms. To ensure that annexation serves county interests equitably and transparently, we respectfully request the General Assembly's consideration of the following reforms. 1. Require county consent for certain annexations. Adopt provisions like those in House Bill 496 that make annexations contingent upon county approval, ensuring counties have a meaningful voice when territory and tax base are affected. 2. Strengthen contiguity standards. Narrowly overload broad definitions of contiguous, closing loopholes that allow annexations disconnect from core municipality areas. Mandatory service and transition agreements. Require binding agreements that delineate service delivery responsibilities, cost sharing, and infrastructure commitments before annexation is finalized. 4. Expand county standing and remedies. Amend OCGA 36-36-13 to broaden grounds for county objection to include demonstrable fiscal impacts, uncompensated loss of revenue, and public service inequities, not solely changes in zoning or density. And 5, ensure compliance with planning consistency. Require annexations to be consistent with adopted local and regional plans developed with county participation. Conclusion. Carroll County supports responsible growth and cooperative relationships with our municipal partners. However, the current statutory frameworks allows annexation to be used as a tool for land grabs and revenue capture rather than as a means of thoughtful, coordinated development and service coordination. We respectfully ask that you vote in favor of Georgia Senate Bill 496 and advocate for its passage during this legislative session. Your leadership on this issue is critical to protecting rural communities, preserving agricultural land, and ensuring that growth in Georgia occurs in a coordinated and responsible manner. Thank you for your time and service, and respectfully submitted by Michelle Morgan, Montrell McClendon, Clint Chance, Tommy Lee, Steve Fuller, Ben Hicks, and Danny Bailey. And I will ask each of you to sign this before you leave today so we can get it sent to our legislative body as soon as possible. And any friends or family that y'all know in other counties, we would love to share this and have them inundated with plenty of information for them. So thank you for that.
Madam Chairman, there was a couple places in there where you said House bill, it's Senate bill.
I'm sorry, thank you for the correction.
Yeah.
Thank you for, I think there's usually more of those, so thank you. Senate Bill 496 introduced by Senator Matt Brass, and we're very appreciative of him being so quick on this. All right, we'll move into 9, our business session. We have here Gary Thomas, our 911 User Board member, and a CAD Review Subcommittee, and we also have Stacy Blattman, our County Attorney, to go over what we've been talking about for some time now about our CAD.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, and thank you for allowing me to speak today. Chief Wade and I are here representing the 911 Users Board, and you'll probably recall this process started January of 25. We came before you and presented a recommendation that we do a CAD evaluation with Mission Critical Partners, which you approved. That process went through the end of 2025. And in October of 2025, we recommended to the Board of Commissioners that we move forward with an RFP for the replacement of the CAD. In November and December of 2025, we identified the need to explore further replacement of the law enforcement record management system and the jail record management system at the same time as the CAD RFP. In January of this year, January the 13th, the User Board voted unanimously to recommend to you to consider having Mission Critical Partners move forward with the RFP for law enforcement records management and jail management system at the same time as the RFP for the CAD. I believe you discussed this at your recent planning session, and I come before you today to ask that you would go ahead and approve that recommendation from the Users Board. Mission Critical Partners did reduce their fee by approximately $34,000, and I want to commend the 911 user agencies. Part of the reason for that reduction was all the agencies have been very responsive to the information that Mission Critical Partners needed, and that was mentioned by Mission Critical Partners. So the total cost for Mission Critical Partners, as I have it right now, is $100,500, and that is our recommendation. Any questions?
Mr. Thomas, it sounds like you've been pleased with the response from Mission Critical Partners and their professionalism in helping the Users Board and our 911 Center work through all of our difficulties that have been pointed out from the past or the current system that we are using. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. They've been, just as they mentioned, they've been very responsive to any questions or concerns that we've had and have been good to work with.
Yes, sir. And I do like that we have the portion in here that they're going to help negotiate the contract, because obviously when we get that RFP back, we'll want someone of their caliber to go through and not only fine-tune what the verbiage is from the submittal from the companies, but someone that understands that and that can try to, as you say, work on our pricing. So I'm very pleased to see that they cut $34,000 there, and I appreciate your leadership in working to ensure that as we go through these phases, we're doing everything that we can to save money. So thank you for your efforts and that of the boards.
Thank you.
Commissioners, I will not be asking for a consent agenda with this particular agenda because several of the items will have to happen again on Tuesday, so we'll just do everything on Tuesday.
Thank you very much.
Gary. 9.2 is the architect for Sheriff's Office Replacement and Jail Modernization Project, which we just saw two wonderful architect companies. I will look for a motion and a second on that for Tuesday night also. A resolution approving cost-saving measures for solid waste services. We have Avery Jackson here to present this for us.
Thank you, Chairman, Commissioners. We have for your consideration a resolution for cost-saving measures for solid waste services and transitioning the solid waste services to a self-sustaining department supported by user fees. The county currently budgets about $9 to $10 million for solid waste services for its citizens. That's broken down into two big buckets. One is garbage at collection at the convenience centers and transferring that garbage to the transfer station. And then the other big bucket is transferring the garbage from the transfer station to the landfill. 2 years ago, and I guess those two buckets, the bucket from the transfer station to the landfill is supported by user fees currently. So it's supported by customers that drop off garbage at the transfer station, and that pays for most of its operations. The convenience centers are in the Public Works Department, and the funds for paying for those operations come out of the county's general fund, which is supported by the citizens' property taxes. And last year, prior to the board voting on the FY 2026 budget, the contractor who hauls the waste for the county from the convenience centers to the transfer station came with a cost increase. That cost increase was, the county was originally paying a flat fee of $1.6 million, and the contractor came with an increase to what equates to $310 a load, or would have been $3.1 million. So almost, doubling what the county was paying at the time. So, I mean, 1.6 million to 3.1 million is a significant cost increase, months before the county's new budget that was unexpected and difficult to deal with at the time. So the county staff got together and started putting together options for the Board of Commissioners' consideration to mitigate that drastic increase that the county saw at the time. Some of those options the board acted on immediately and directed county staff to take those options to save money. One of those was converting all the garbage cans at the convenience centers to roll-off cans. We had some front-end loader cans at the convenience centers, and the Board of Commissioners immediately approved that, and the county staff took action to implement that. And so now we have all roll-off cans. We estimate that the transportation where you don't need the front-end loader trucks to unload those front-end loader cans has saved the county about $420,000 a year, and that was able to be implemented very quickly thanks to the Public Works Department and the Board of Commissioners. So that was the first step in attempting to save some cost and mitigate the cost increase. The second step was to put trash compactors in at all the convenience centers, and so that full loads would be hauled to the transfer station instead of non-compacted trash loads, which would have a lot less weight. That was implemented, put in place, and it's estimated that saves about $600,000 per year, so a substantial savings from that action that, again, was able to be put in place very quickly by the Board of Commissioners and the Public Works Department. Now, we know that these costs are going to continue to increase over time, and so we've been looking at what are the options that we can mitigate this going forward, and we don't have this drastic surprise like we did this time, and how can we keep these costs under control. And the board has been discussing this for many years and has been debating these issues heavily over the past year. And so the proposal before you has a couple of options that staff is recommending to the board as potential options to help the county going forward to keep this under control. The first option is that the county currently accepts furniture at the convenience center, so you can dump furniture. Obviously, we don't have compactors to compact the furniture, so you're paying $310 a load to take what might be a couple of mattresses and a chair or a TV from a convenience center to the transfer station. And actually, now that we compact all of our other garbage, the county pays more for the furniture than we do for our garbage. So the proposal from staff to the Board of Commissioners is that the county would transfer all the collection of furniture from the convenience centers to the transfer station. So the citizens would drop off furniture at the transfer station and not at the convenience centers, which again would save significant amounts of money to the county. It's estimated that that would save about $1.2 million a year from funds from the general fund that's again funded from property taxes of all the citizens. And the citizens would drop that off, and there's no proposal for any charge for dropping that off at the convenience center. The collection point would be the site of our old transfer station. So when the new transfer station gets up and running, which is expected to be this spring or summer, then the collection point would be the site of the current transfer station, the old transfer station. That's one option for the board. The other option that's being recommended by staff, again, is moving the entire solid waste services to a self-sustaining department, just like the operations of the transfer station and collecting the garbage at the transfer station and moving that to the landfill is paid for by customers and users. The proposal would be to make the entire solid waste services department, including the convenience centers, a self-sustaining department that's paid for by customers or user fees of those services. So the proposal would be to implement a user fee for using the convenience centers. The county staff researched and looked at what do all the surrounding counties and cities do, and one county adjacent to us, they have a millage rate. They assign a millage rate to their solid waste services, and it shows up on the tax bill as your solid waste service millage rate, and all those property taxes go to that special fund. Another county that's adjacent to us has a fee and a pass system. And then some of the counties adjacent to us have got out of the business altogether of having convenience centers, and their citizens have to rely on private contractors and private haulers of garbage and trash. Researching those fees, the staff wanted to come up with a fee that was lower than any of the ones that are surrounding us or any private haulers or what citizens of any of the cities that collect trash pay. And that proposed fee would be $50 per year. There would be a discount for seniors over the age of 65. They would pay 50% of that, which would be $25 per year. So that's the second part of the proposal to help mitigate those services and again transition that to a self-sustaining department. The third item that's in the proposed resolution for you is dealing with brush. We collect brush at the transfer station currently, and that's been at a fee that's less than our garbage collection fee at the transfer station. But processing the brush, and there's no market for the brush, so dealing with it even after it's processed has become more difficult. And so the proposal is to increase that fee to the same fee that's charged for garbage collection at the transfer station, which is $70 per ton. So those are the proposals that the county staff has come up with for the Board of Commissioners. We know that these have been discussed significantly over the past year with the commissioners, and I think the staff is looking for more direction for the board on how we need to continue to tackle this problem going forward.
Well, I can start. Everyone's wanting to take a turn, I can tell. This is something that I have talked about, I know the whole board has, but I had been concerned about this for several years, that when we looked at the operational cost and we looked at the volume cost, that this one day was going to be catastrophic for the county if we did not do something. You've got attendants that are being paid to run the convenience centers through a third party that we're hiring. You've got travel cost from the convenience centers to the transfer station. You've got travel costs from the transfer station to the actual dumping site at a landfill out of town. And then you've got the actual tipping fee itself at the dumping site. So you've got all those different intervals of operational costs that when stuff goes up, it's not just going up in one category, it's going up in all of those different categories. And when we think about society, and this is an example that I had given earlier, Walmart, for instance. 10 years ago, Walmart might order 100 bottles of shampoo and it comes in one big, large container. And you go to the store and you buy your shampoo, so they've got to discard that one large container, cardboard box, whatever it is. We live in a society now where we're constantly ordering things from Amazon, Walmart, anybody that will deliver something to us. So imagine those 100 bottles that come into a major store, or maybe it's a hub now. You've still got to do away with that, but now you've got 100 customers that want it all delivered to their house. So now you've got 100 more additional cardboard boxes or 100 additional more packages that have to be thrown away. So when you just look at society ourselves, the amount of trash that we're producing by the lifestyle that we're living as a society, we're producing more trash than ever before. Even if the consumption itself does not increase, the manner in which we're going about the consumption increases it. So just to give you an example, in the city of Villa Rica, one container right now, they have a mandatory pickup that whether you want your trash picked up or not, you're mandatory to pay that fee. One little roll-off is about $216 a year. So that is a limited amount. Now they do pick it up, but $216 a year. With this proposal, $50 a year, unlimited as long as you fit within the categories, or if you're a senior citizen, $25 a year, unlimited as long as you fit in the categories. We have spoken with our auditors. I know I've asked the question. I think this was a great thing when the county originally started this, but trash is much like an enterprise fund. And an enterprise fund in government is typically designed to pay for itself. So if you own your home, you can't say, well, I pay taxes, so I'm not going to pay an electricity bill, because that's really considered an enterprise fund from a governing accounting perspective. You can't say, I own my home, so I'm not going to pay a water bill, because I'm a taxpayer in Carroll County. I'm not going to pay a water bill. And the reason is because in government accounting, that's considered an enterprise fund. So the same thing with trash. It's been a great thing, and I want to continue to provide some level of service to our constituents. But it is unreasonable when we have other government entities around us that have mandatory requirements to purchase, whether you use it or not, and you have a limited amount that you can even throw away. We've got some that charge more than we're wanting to charge, and we have some governing bodies in the neighboring jurisdictions around Carroll County that don't offer it at all. So as a consumer, as a taxpayer, as a citizen of Carroll County, it's easy to look at this and just say, well, I just cannot believe that they're fixing to charge. But when you sit and look at the facts, everything that we're doing to funnel in here is money that we could be using in other areas for county government for services. And so the amount of money that we're asking for citizens to pay to utilize that, I think, is very minimal. And the other thing is, I don't know that we're looking at requiring them to do that. So if a citizen wants to hire their own trash service and pay $200 or $300 a year, or $500 a year, or whatever, they are more than welcome to do that. We're not requiring, I think, that they have to purchase this. But at some point in time, because of the amount of consumption, the way that the user habits are, of the examples that I gave, of how much more trash we're producing, even if it's at the same level of consumption, it is something that the county simply cannot continue to sustain because, as I've said before, and in layman's terms, it's going to bankrupt the county, just trying to deal with trash. So I know I've said a lot there. I think this is a very, very conservative board. We've never been one that want to charge our citizens more. I've been on this board for 8 years. We've done at least a partial rollback every single year that I've been on this board. When other governments have left their millage rates the same or gone up on their millage rates. So we have been very conservative, and I don't think we would be considering this if it was not at a critical level of the amount of money that it is costing us to sustain this. And so I am in favor of the county needing to, in some form or fashion, move forward with trying to mitigate those costs. And I appreciate, from the staff perspective, the operational changes that have already taken place that Mr. Jackson went over that has saved considerable amounts of money as well to try to offset those costs.
I guess my only comments to it is, one, I appreciate everything that the staff has done to make the changes. We talked about this for a long time. Those changes, I think you said, has already saved like $1.2 million. That is, that's a substantial amount of savings, so I appreciate everybody that's worked on this. That's just, that's astronomical. And you presented the choices we have as something as long a millage rate broken out on the bill, or a fee or no business. Well, the first one and the last one for me is really not an option on that part. So the fee is something that, that we never like to impose, but like Clint just pointed out, it's $50, it's a lot less than what the others are. I don't want to make light of that situation. And I know anything that we do up here that looks like a fee or another tax, something we're going to get some negative back from it, but it's just, when you look at the picture of the whole, that sometimes maybe the community doesn't realize until we have a conversation with them and explain to them what it was costing us, what it saves, those changes. I don't think they realize. And for me personally, I welcome any comments they got, anything that need explanation for. And the furniture, we talked about that a lot. That's going to be a tremendous savings there. And it's not that we're asking the citizens to inquire paying a fee for that. It's still free. You drop it off at Simonton Mill. You pull up, go through the weight station, pull around, drop off what you got. So I don't want anyone to misunderstand that we're trying to do away with the furniture. We are doing away with the convenience centers, but you still have a location you can take it, because that seems to be costing us some of the things that's costing us the most amount of money that we're inquiring on the cost of it. So just I encourage y'all to keep looking for ways to bring back to us. Like I said, we're going to meet some resistance to it, but it's like when we've done the trash compactors on that, man, after a learning curve and kind of got everything settled in, I haven't had any more complaints of that, and I truly feel like it's a betterment for what it looks like at the convenience centers and the operation of it and the money that's being saved. So, everything has to change at some point in time, and it's just one of them we got to work through, and hopefully what we're doing here is going to save the county money and not put too big a burden on the taxpayers.
Well, I will look for a motion a second on Tuesday night for this resolution. At this time, we'll move into item 4, which is the Moss Ferry Park consideration. And we have our Park Director, Kent Johnson, here to present this to us.
Good afternoon, Commission. Thank y'all for having me. I'm just making a request for an expenditure in that would be less than $175,000 for improvements at Moss Ferry so that we can get that open by hopefully midsummer. That would include mostly the bathroom with a pavilion attached on the front of that, and the paving of the parking lot, and then some other things, benches and a fence across the front of that little wall and things like that. So that is the basis of my request. So.
Mr. Johnson, you and I have met out at the park, and we kind of walked through and drove through some different areas. I appreciate the work that you have done so far since being an employee with Carroll County of trying to get that up and running. Just a couple of points that we talked about. We know the community is going to be excited to use it in the area, is making sure that our neighbors that are around the land that we own, that they are updated and approached so that they understand kind of what's going on, to be a good neighbor to them. And I know that you stated that you were going to make some efforts to ensure that we're doing that before we open the park up. And then also from a safety, public safety standpoint, making sure that we maybe have markers or different things that if an unfortunate event happened, that someone fell or hurt and they needed to call 911, that since this is a new park coming online, that our first responders are not just showing up to a park and not knowing what's going on, that we're going to work diligently with them to make sure they can access them at whatever point they might be. And I know a part of that will be having some future conversations before the park opens with Fairfield Plantation, because we have a mutual aid, an automatic aid agreement with their fire department as well, and we know that the property from the park comes up and borders Fairfield. So thank you for all your efforts, and just wanted to reiterate those points to make sure that before opening day, we're covering all those bases.
We will cover those. Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll look for a motion a second on Tuesday night. That concludes our work session, and Commissioners, if you'll please stay for just a moment.